Hi guys, my name is Sarvan Kumar. I am your economy faculty. Welcome to Rathods IAS Economic Weekly Series. Guys, as usual, even this week we have a lot of economic current affairs which appeared in different newspapers. So without wasting any time, let us look at the first topic. See, these days we are seeing a nationwide protests being made by the farmers to ensure the MSP that has a legal binding. To put it simply for you, the farmers are protesting nationwide to ensure that there is a legal backing for the MSP, which is currently not there, which is currently it is devoid of. The Niti Aayog asserted that the MSP should continue till markets become competitive and efficient. So amid these situations, now we are going to discuss what is this current affair, and before that, see, the UPSC is not going to ask you anything like what is the protest and how the protest is going on, each and everything. The UPSC mainly asks you about this MSP. So without wasting any time, let's have some basics first. Now, as I said, I think you might already heard about the term MSP. MSP stands for minimum support price. MSP stands for minimum support price. Now, it is called a remunerative price for the farmers. It is a remunerative price for the farmers. What is the meaning of remunerative price? See, the price which is given to the farm produce, if it is more than the cost of production, we usually say it as the remunerative price. Say for example, for our convenience, take 1 kg of paddy is produced at 100 rupees per kg. See, 1 kg of paddy is produced at 100 rupees. Now, this is called cost of production for producing 1 kg of paddy. Now, if government procures or purchases this 1 kg of paddy at 150 rupees or at least at 125 rupees, which is more than the cost of production, we call it as a remunerative price. So, in such a way, MSP is a remunerative price which is given to the farmers. Now, this MSP is given to 23 major crops. The MSP is given to 23 major crops in the country currently. Now, this MSP, these points are very much important for your prelims as well as mains, guys. The MSP is announced before the sowing season. See, MSP is announced before the sowing season. Before the sowing season. Now, you all know that famously we do have 3 important seasons in the country. The first one is the Kharif season. To put it simply, it's a monsoon season, rainy season for us, right? We have a summer monsoon. Next we have the Rabi season, the winter season, and next we have the Zaid, which is summer. Like for example, in the Kharif, we use it to cultivate the crops such as paddy. And in the Rabi crops, when we look at the Rabi crops, particularly we have a wheat here. And in the Zaid, we all eat like cucumbers, watermelons, all these crops are cultivated during the Zaid season. Now, this MSP is announced before the sowing season for 23 major crops. So automatically it means the MSP would be announced for the Kharif crops and MSP would be announced for the Rabi crops. So you have to remember that if there is a statement in the options that MSP is announced only once in the country, it would be wrong. MSP would be announced at least twice in the country, before the Kharif season, before the Rabi season, because MSP is announced before the sowing season. You know the meaning of sowing. Sowing the seeds by the farmers in their farmlands. So MSP is announced before the sowing season. It is announced for 23 major crops, and these 23 major crops are of Kharif season, are cultivated in the Kharif season as well as in the Rabi season, right? Now, understand. The next point you need to remember is MSP is announced for a quintal of crop. MSP is announced for a quintal of crop. It is not announced for a ton. A ton is usually 1000 kgs and a quintal is about 100 kgs. MSP for 23 major crops announced is on the basis of a quintal. A MSP, say for example, 1 quintal of paddy is 1500 rupees. 1 quintal of sugar cane is around 15,000 rupees, like 1500 or 2500 rupees. In such a way, MSP is announced for a quintal of the crop, but not for a ton of the crop. Right? I hope you understood it. Now comes the important facts, that is, understand about these three important institutions in the economy. Now try to understand. The Government of India, right? The first one. The second one is the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. The third one is CACP. Right? We have these three institutions. See, MSP is recommended by the CACP, Commission for Agricultural Cost and Prices, which is under the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. Next, we have the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, which is headed by the Prime Minister. It is going to approve the MSP. And we have the Government of India, who announces the MSP before the sowing season. So, minimum support price is a remunerative price. Remunerative price means which is a price more than the cost of production. The first point you need to remember. Now, MSP is announced for 23 major crops in India currently. Now, 23 major crops includes both the Kharif crops and Rabi crops. As I said, MSP is announced before the sowing season. Automatically, it means MSP is not announced once in a year. It would be announced at least twice a year. Right? Now, when it comes to who announces and whose recommendation and who approval the MSP is announced, the Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices recommends the MSP. What is the meaning of recommending the MSP? Say, for example, 1 kg or 1 quintal of paddy should be 1500. 1 quintal of paddy is 1500. So, in such a way, 1 quintal of paddy, how much should be 1 quintal of paddy, how much should be 1 quintal of sugarcane, how much should be 1 quintal of wheat. So, in such a way, the CACP recommends the MSP, the monetary money, the monetary terms of MSP, and it will be recommending it to the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. If the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs approves it, then the Government of India is going to announce it. So, you need to remember that CACP recommends, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs approves, and Government of India announces the MSP. Now, comes to the next portion. As I said, MSP is a remunerative price, isn't it? I said the MSP is announced for 23 major crops, and for all these 23 major crops, MSP is a remunerative price. MSP is a remunerative price. Now, I also told you the meaning of remunerative price. What does it mean? Remunerative price means the farmers will be given such kind of a price which is more than the cost of production of that particular crop. We call it as a remunerative price. Now, try to understand, guys. Try to understand one more important point here. Now, MSP as of now does not have any kind of a legal backing. MSP does not have any kind of a legal backing. Now, if you take the example of PDS system, public distribution system, which we have already discussed in our previous classes. When it comes to the public distribution system, it has a legal backing in the name of National Food Security Act of 2013. In Public Union West Civil Liberties, Public Union for Civil Liberties, West Union of India, Public Union West for Civil Liberties, West Union of India case, the Supreme Court, right? The Supreme Court reiterated that the right to food comes under Article 21, right to life. So, when the right to food became a right to life under Article 21, the Government of India enacted on the lines of this verdict, the Government of India enacted the National Food Security Act 2013. Now, this National Food Security Act is providing the legal backing for the PDS system in the country. However, there is no such kind of a legal backing for the MSP being currently given in the country. Now, one of the main protests being made by the farmers is to have some legal backing, for the MSP in the country. And the Niti Aayog also recommended that still the market achieves the competitiveness with respect to these kind of agricultural commodities, the Government of India should be announcing the MSP. The Government of India should be announcing the MSP. So, this is what they have said. Now, when it comes to the cost of production, see, when it comes to the remunerative price, as I said, it's a remunerative price. See, the Government of India currently announcing the MSP as 150% of cost of production. It is announced as 150% of cost of production. Say, for example, see, If the cost of production is 100 rupees, if we multiply it with 150 percentage, so we get 150 rupees. Or it is also called as 1.5 times of cost of production. Either we call a 150 percentage of the cost of production or 1.5 times of the cost of production, both one and the same, because you're going to get the same number. 1.5 times of 100 is 150, or 150 percentage of 100 is also 150. So in such a way, MSP is currently announced as 1.5 times or 150 percentage of the cost of production in the country. Now comes the next question. Now, how the cost of production is being determined in the country? Let's try to understand. As far as the cost of production is concerned, we have three important components in the country, right? See, one is A2, second one is A2 plus FL, and third one is C2. Now, when it comes to the A2, now what is this A2 means? See, imagine myself as a farmer. Now, in order to cultivate the farmland, say for example, I am the cultivator of paddy. Now, in order to cultivate the paddy, I need to purchase the high yielding variety seeds, right? High yielding variety seeds. I need to purchase the chemical pesticides. I need to purchase the chemical fertilizers. So, I need to purchase all these things in order to start cultivating my farmland. Now, we call these things as agricultural inputs. High yielding variety seeds, chemical pesticides, chemical fertilizers. We call all these things as agricultural inputs. Now, a farmer needs to purchase these agricultural inputs in order to take up the agriculture, right? Isn't it or not? Now, if the farmers need all these things, definitely he needs to purchase it. Now, in order to purchase something, he needs to make some expenditure, isn't it or not? So, the A2 component of the cost of production is nothing but all the out-of-pocket expenditure made by the farmer in order to purchase these agricultural inputs. Right? Say for example, on high-yielding variety seeds, chemical pesticides, chemical fertilizers, he spent an out-of-pocket expenditure of about 600 rupees. So, this is the A2 component of the cost of production. Now, we have another component of the cost of production, that is the A2 plus FL. Now, I already understood the meaning of A2. Now, FL stands for family labor. FL stands for family labor. FL stands for the family labor. Now, what is the meaning of family labor? In the news channels, often you might have seen that a wife and sons of the farmer are providing the labor work which usually provided by the bullocks, right? Often they use it to carry the bullock works like or the plow work on their shoulders. You might have seen all these kind of things in the news channels. So try to understand, if we leave that, at a times, say for example, we also know about those farmers which makes their wives and also sons to work in their fields. It's not a wrong thing, but I'm saying like often the farmer's son and farmer's wife will provide the labor work in the farmland. Imagine he's a farmer. Now, if he calls a labor to work on the farmland, you know, in order to pluck the weeds, in order to spray the chemical pesticides, in order to spread the chemical fertilizers like urea, often farmers hires the laborers, isn't it or not? Now, if the farmers hires the laborers, they need to be paid their daily wages, right? Now, often many of the farmers don't hire these people, but often their wife, their sons is going to do the work. We call it as a family labor. Now try to understand, if a farmer, see in our above example, the farmer spent an amount of 600 rupees out of his pocket in order to get all these agricultural inputs in order to start up the agriculture. Now imagine, in order to start up this agriculture, you know that farmer alone can't sow the seeds, pluck the weeds and each and everything. He need to hire the labor. Now imagine if he hires the labor from outside, he needs to pay them 400 rupees. Imagine if he wants to hire two persons in order to work on his farmland, he needs to pay them 400 rupees. But this 400 rupees worth of labor is being provided by the family persons itself. Now, if we add that, don't you think that providing or paying the laborer is also a part of cost of production? Everything is a part of cost of production. Whatever the amount the farmer spends before the farm is going to get harvested is definitely going to be a part of cost of production. Right? Remember this word. Whatever the farmer spends on the crop, on the cultivation of the crop before it gets harvested is called, till it gets harvested, even till harvested is called the cost of production. Now automatically A2 is already 600 rupees. Now the family labor, it is 400 rupees. Now If we add that, automatically it should also be the cost of production. So totally it makes to 1000 rupees. Now we call it as A2 plus FL component of the cost of production. Next we have the C2 component. It is nothing but A2 plus FL and revenue foregone on the capital assets. Revenue foregone on capital assets. Is the revenue foregone on the capital assets. Try to understand, guys. Imagine myself as a farmer. I have my own land. I have my own tractor. I have my own buildings, right? In order to take up various agricultural activities in my farmland. But many of the farmers are devoid of all these things. Now, imagine myself as a farmer which are lacking in all these things. See, first of all, I need to spend some money out of my pocket in order to purchase the agricultural inputs. I need to hire the labor in order to sow the seeds, plug the weeds, each and everything. And I need to pay the rent. If at all I don't have a own land, I need to pay a rent on the farmland. I need to hire a tractor. I need to use some machineries, buildings. Don't you think all these are nothing but the cost of production? So automatically now C2 includes all these things. Say for example, on the land he need to pay a rent of, he need to hire a tractor, he need to use a buildings. So cumulatively he might be paying 400 rupees or 500 rupees. Say for example, on the land, on the tractors, on all these capital assets, he might be paying an amount of 500 rupees. So automatically C2 is nothing but, A2 plus FL is already 1000 and we considered the rest of the revenue foregone on all these capital assets is 500 rupees. So automatically what do we get? 1500 rupees. Right? So here try to understand. If you observe this carefully, we have three components. The A2 component of the cost of production is 600 rupees. The A2 plus FL component of the cost of production is 1000 rupees. And the C2 component is about 1500 rupees. Now remember guys, currently the government of India is announcing the MSP on the recommendations of the CACP. You also know that. Now the CACP recommends MSP on the basis of A2 plus FL. Currently, the MSP is currently announced by the government of India on which component of the cost of production? It is on the A2 plus FL component of the cost of production. I told you MSP is 1.5 times of the cost of production. So about 1.5 times of the cost of production means 1.5 into 1000 rupees. 1000 rupees in our example, 1000 rupees is the A2 plus FL component of cost of production. So automatically 1.5 times of the 1000 means it is 1500. So 1 quintal of paddy is equal to 1500 rupees. In such a way, guys, the MSP will be announced, MSP will be recommended by the CACP for the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, and which will be approved and announced by the government of India. Guys, you have to be very careful here. You need to observe two important terms. Currently, the MSP is announced on the A2 plus FL component of the cost of production. You have to keep in mind. But when the CACP recommends the MSP for the farmers, to the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, it is also going to consider the C2 component of cost of production. Say for example, imagine it is a document of the CACP which is recommending the MSP for the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. Now, the MSP on the A2 plus FL component is about 1000 into 500, 1000 into 150 percentage, that is equal to 1500. Right? The CACP is also going to recommend the MSP on the C2 component also. C2 component is the cost of production is 1500 into 150 percentage. So automatically translates to 1500 plus 750. So automatically 2250. So MSP, the CACP recommends that A2 plus FL, the MSP for the quintal of paddy is about 1500, and if it is the C2 component, it is about 2250. Now the main thing, if we add the current affairs to it, the next thing what we need to understand is, the first thing we have discussed that MSP does not have a legal backing currently, like the PDS system has a legal backing of National Food Security Act of 2013, right? The farmers' first protest, one of the main demand of the farmers is to have some legal backing for the MSP. The second important demand of the farmers these days is about the C2 component. As I said, currently the MSP is announced in the country on which component? It is on A2 plus FL component. Currently, the MSP is announced in the country on which component? It is A2 plus FL component. The farmers are protesting that the MSP should be announced on the C2 component of the cost of production. The farmers are demanding that MSP should be announced on the C2 component of the cost of production. See, right? C2 component of the cost of production. Now, this is the farmer's demand. See, legal entitlement, you can observe here. The legal entitlement, there is a demand that MSP should be 50%, 150% of the C2 component. Right? This is the main. Now you also understand only about 70 to 80% of the farm crop which is produced by the farmers is being procured. Particularly the Food Corporation of India is procuring the pad and wheat and providing the MSP to the farmers. Right? Now we will discuss all these things. As I said, I hope you understood what is this MSP, what are the technical components, what are the components of the cost of production and each and everything. As I said, MSP assures the farmers of a fixed price for the crops well above their cost of production. MSP is devoid of any legal backing as of now, as I said, right? It cannot be demanded as a legal right. If it is only a government policy that is a part of administrative decision making, but it does not have any kind of a legal backing, and no farmer cannot claim it as a right as of now. Now, it is a old method of calculating the MSP by the CSCP, like they are going to look at the market price trends, the commodity situation, international things like inflation, each and everything. But from the budget 2018 and 19, the MSP is announced 1.5 times as the cost of production. Now, guys, understand, the MSP should be 1.5 times of the cost of production is recommended by the Indian famous agricultural scientist M.S. Swaminathan. And the recommendations of the M.S. Swaminathan, the government of India is announcing 1.5 times of the cost of production. But however, government of India is announcing the MSP on A2 plus FL component, but Swaminathan recommended that it should be on the C2 component of cost of production. You have to remember it, right? As I said, here we have the three important components, right? Now, when it comes to the farmers' demands, like there is a legal entitlement, this is the current affair latestly, and mandatory purchase of the MSP, right? It is another demand, right? Now, expansion of the C2, farmers' unions are demanding that C2 must include the capital assets and rental foregone on the own land as recommended by the National Commission for Farmers, like MS Swaminathan, headed by Swaminathan. Now, let us try to understand what are the legal hurdles or what are the issues that we have if once we try to announce, if the government of India tries to announce the legal backing for the MSP. See, you all know that a price of a commodity should be depend upon the demand and supply of that particular commodity, isn't it? The demand theory in the economy says that the prices of a particular commodity, is based upon the demand, right? Now, economic theory as well as experiences indicate that the price level is not supported by the demand and supply cannot be sustained through legal means, right? The prices cannot be sustained through the legal means. The prices can be sustained by the demand. If there is a continuous demand, and more demand for a particular good, the demand ensures the prices for a particular good, right? This is what the demand theory says in the economy. But it is not absolutely applicable in our case. This is the main hurdle in providing a legal backing. Now, Center has suggested that states are free to guarantee MSP if they wish, but also offers two failed examples of such policy. Center given a free hand for the state governments to announce MSP and they can guarantee the MSP for the states, right? When we discussed about the static syllabus in our economic classes, we also discussed about the PDS system and we also discussed about the decentralized procurement scheme of the state governments, right? Next. When we look at the fiscal cost of making the MSP as a legal binding, try to understand the MSP value of the total output of all the 23 notified crops is out to be about 11.19 lakh crores, right? Taking an average of 75% of the yield as a number, the MSP value of the production actually sold by the farmers is just around 9 lakh crores, right? The government of India further, the MSP value of 89.42 million tons of the paddy and 43.34 wheat alone brought during 2021, which costs around 2,53,275 crores for the farmers. Now, when we discussed about the MSP and we also discussed about the PDS system in the country, then we discussed about the central government food subsidy. Central government food subsidy. See, we have discussed that. Imagine this is a FCI. The FCI is going to pay the MSP for the farmers, and then it is going to transport these food grains for the state government depots. Now, MSP for the farmers might be paying the 1500 rupees for quintal of the crop. When the FCI sells these kind of food grains to the state government depot, they might be selling it at 500 rupees. Now, the balance in between 1000 rupees is nothing but the central government food subsidy. We also discussed it as a central issue price. The price at which the food grains is sold by the Food Corporation of India to the states is nothing but the central issue price. So, in such a way, it is going to be costing a heavy burden, heavy fiscal burden on the central government. Providing a legal guarantee for the entire marketable surplus of 23 major crops would be covering another 5 lakh crores for the central government, which is going to pose a huge burden. Currently, the latest arrears with respect to central government food subsidies is not being provided by the government on timely basis for the MSP. When these kind of initiatives were taken where the legal binding is provided by the 23 major crops, it would going to pose a huge fiscal burden on the central government. Right? So, this is about the MSP. Guys, I hope you understood all the technical details of this MSP. Okay? Right? This is about the minimum support price. The next thing we have to discuss is about, I hope you understood, and try to, guys, if possible, try to note down all the facts in a sequential way. Next important current affair that we are going to discuss is about Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Guys, before that, I need to tell you, I need to give you a perspective with respect to Indian agriculture, Indian primary sector, right after the independence till now. Right? You have to understand this important, develop these kind of a perspectives in order to write your main answers. See, guys, when we inherited independence from the British government, like we also inherited various problems such as poverty, unemployment, lack of healthcare facilities, lack of educational facilities, all these are the different kinds, all these are like different problems that we have inherited from the British government right after independence. Right? Now, in order to solve the problems of poverty, unemployment, lack of healthcare facilities, educational facilities, any government needs money, right? Any government needs money. Now, where does a money comes to the government? The money should be coming from the government through the taxes. When we talk about the taxes, what are the different types of taxes we have? We have the direct taxes and indirect taxes. Right? So, in order to solve these problems, the government need money. The Nehruvian government need money. But, see, the Nehru government need money. Now, money comes to the government through the taxes. Now, what about the taxes? We have the different direct taxes and indirect taxes. Now, who should pay these taxes to the government? The people should pay the taxes to the government. Now, who are the people at the time of independence in the country? Nothing but the farmers. They are nothing but the farmers. Now, do you think the farmers have the capability to pay the direct taxes and indirect taxes to the government so that the government will get these tax revenues to solve these problems? No. See, the farmers, when we look at the two cases of the direct tax and indirect taxes. Now, in case of direct taxes or in case of indirect taxes, if in order to pay the taxes, the farmer should have the surplus money. What does it mean? Say for example, he is a farmer. Now, if he produces 20 kgs of food grains, and if the 20 kgs of the food grains is just enough to feed his family, we say this particular farmer is practicing a subsistence agriculture. Now, whatever the produce that is produced by the farmers is just enough to feed his family, then we say the farmer is practicing a subsistence agriculture. Now, only if the farmer produces 40 kgs of rice, then 20 kgs of the rice will be enough to feed the family, and the extra 20 kgs of the rice can be transported to the market so that he earns the income. If and only if he earns the income, then he can either pay the direct tax or he can pay the indirect tax. See, try to understand. See, guys, the power to impose the direct tax particularly the income tax on the agricultural income, is being provided to the state governments by the Constitution of India. Many of the students, many of the UPSC aspirants believe that the state governments does not have a power to impose any kind of a direct tax. So according to the Constitution, if such kind of a statement is appeared in the prelims options, you should be very careful. No, that statement would be wrong. The state governments have the power to impose a direct tax. One and only one power, one and only one direct tax, that is the tax on the agricultural income. Now, many of the states have exempted it. Many of the states have exempted it. That's the reason why it does not come into the limelight. So, leave about the direct taxes. The farmer's income is not taxable in the country. Now, when it comes to the indirect taxes, what is the meaning of indirect taxes? Say, for example, if we demand a goods and service, say, for example, if you purchase a mobile phone, if you purchase a lappy, if you purchase any kind of good, now what are you going to do? You are going to pay the price along with the taxes. Right? Imagine you might be purchasing a good of 100 rupees. You might be paying GST of 10%, which is totally 110 rupees. Right? Isn't it? You are paying the taxes. The GST is nothing but the indirect tax which we pay to the shopkeeper, and in turn the shopkeeper pays to the government. We already discussed about these things in our previous newspaper analysis and as well as this economic weekly series. So in such a way, if a farmer can demand the good, then he can pay some indirect taxes to the government. Automatically, the government will get the indirect tax. Now, do you think the farmer can demand the goods? Leave about the direct taxes. Can the farmer demand the goods? No, because he is practicing the subsistence agriculture. Whatever he is producing is just enough to feed the family. And if he can produce more food grains, right, like 40 kgs, he can transport that extra 20 kgs of the food grains to the market, and then by using that money he can demand the goods. And if the farmer demands the goods, so then government of India can get the indirect taxes. So as far as this taxes is concerned, so both the direct taxes and indirect taxes, the government of India did not get any kind of direct taxes or indirect taxes from the farmers during that period. Now the main thing before the government of India, in order to increase the income of the farmers, is to increase the production of the farmers. So from 20 kgs to 40 kgs, the farmers' production should increase so that they can transport the extra food grains for the market and they can earn some income. With that, they can demand the goods and services and they would be coming out of the poverty. So one socio-economic goal would be achieved by the government. So the main task before the government is to increase the food grains production. Now when we look at the increasing the food grain production, the first reform the government of India have taken after the independence is about land reforms. The first reform that government of India is taken is nothing but the land reforms. The government of India, say on the recommendations of the government of India, many state governments, you know that agriculture is a state subject, so automatically whatever the laws is passed by the states with respect to the agriculture, so they should be passed by the states itself, right? So the states, many of the states passed the Jamindari Abolition Act, Jamindari Abolition Acts, right? Jamindari Abolition Acts, Mahalwari, the Intermediaries Abolitions Acts, like we have the Madras Abolition, Jamindari Abolition Act. In such a way, many states have passed the Jamindari, right? The states passed land ceiling acts, like a family should have only this much amount of the land, right? In such a way, we have some land reforms being implemented in the country in the initial phases. But we all discussed in the static syllabus when we discussed about the economic classes that all these land reforms which are implemented in the country initially got their loopholes. Say for example, in the land ceiling act, say for example, imagine a best land can be held by a family is about 15 to 18 acres. But unfortunately, there is a loophole in it. Now, if a landlord divorces his wife, when a landlord divorces his wife, the divorced wife can have a separate chunk of land under the land ceiling acts. So what the jamindars and landlords did, they have divorced their wives and kept some land on their name and still use it to live with them. So in such a way, there are various loopholes. Say for example, in the Jamindari Abolition Acts, there is a loophole called personal cultivation. Now imagine myself as a Jamindar, and if I have 100 acres, now abolition of the Jamindari Act says that all my land, most of the land, my land should be given to the government of India. Now, if the government of India gets this land out of the passing of like land ceiling acts and Jamindari Abolition Acts, the extra surplus land can be distributed among the farmers. Right? This is the plan. Now, in the Jamindari Abolition Act, we have a loophole called personal cultivation. If the farmers, if the landlord wishes to personally cultivate his land, he can retain it. In such a way, it has the loopholes. Now, what the plan is, the farmer currently, imagine the farmer has 1 acre of land. With that, he is producing 20 kgs. Now, if he is provided 2 acres of land, then he can produce the 40 kgs and the extra 20 kgs can be transported to the market. But unfortunately, these land reforms have failed. These land reforms have failed. Next came the Green Revolution. Now, in the 1 acre of the land itself, if the farmers apply high yielding variety seeds, chemical pesticides, chemical fertilizers, all these things, he can cultivate, right? Instead of 20 kgs, he can now cultivate about 40 to 50 kgs. Now, as these agricultural inputs, high yielding variety seeds, chemical pesticides and chemical fertilizers are costlier in nature, the government of India, after nationalization of the banks, one of the main purpose of nationalization of the banks is to expand the branches of the government public sector banks, so that the farmers will get credit, agricultural credit and all these different kinds of credit in the rural areas. So, in order to purchase all these agricultural inputs, the farmer needs money, right? As they are already practicing a subsistence agriculture, how can we expect a farmer to purchase all these kind of chemical and all these kind of costly agricultural inputs? So, the government of India started providing the credits. Expanding the formal credit for the agriculture sector. And even after getting the credit, these agricultural inputs are so costlier. So, the government of India the state governments and central government started providing subsidies. Now, when the farmers is getting credit and farmers is providing the subsidies, so when all farmers is applying the Green Revolution, definitely there would be a bumper production. The production of the food grains will increase exponentially. Now, the production increases when some good is available at a rapid scale. Automatically, when the demand is less, when the supply is more, automatically the demand would be low. When the demand would be low, the price of the good is going to get reduced. So, when each and every farmer is practicing the Green Revolution and producing more food grains, when there is more supply of the food grains in the economy, automatically their prices would be reduced. So, when the prices is reduced, say for example, the cost of production of the 1 kg of the paddy might be 100 rupees. But due to the enough supply, more supply in the economy, in the market value of the 1 kg of paddy might be 80 rupees. It might be fall down. So, in order to ensure the farmers to take up the agriculture continuously, the government of India started announcing the MSP. That we have discussed just now, right? MSP. Now, after doing all this, in order to ensure this MSP, in order to procure the food grains, the government of India came up with this Food Corporation of India, all these institutions. Now, after all this, if the farmer's crop fails due to pest attack or locust attack, or often the sugarcane crop is being damaged by the elephants. So, in order to protect the farmer's crop from these kind of adversaries, we have the insurance, farm insurance, in the name of Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. So, ultimately, that would be the last step, is a part of the agricultural reforms. So, in such a way, we have this Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. The name itself is suggesting it's a Fasal Bima Yojana. Right? The Andhra Pradesh, when we look at the current affair, the Andhra Pradesh has decided to rejoin the crop insurance scheme, Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, from the ongoing Kharif season, right? See, Andhra Pradesh was one of the 6 states that have stopped the implementation of the scheme over the last 4 years, right? The other 5 which remain out are Bihar, Jharkhand, West Bengal, Jharkhand and Telangana. Guys, earlier it was a compulsory for the lonely farmers, now it's a voluntary scheme. Now let us try to understand the features of the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. It was launched in the February 2016 and it is going to provide comprehensive insurance coverage against the failure of the crops. Right? It is implemented by the general insurance companies. The agencies which implements a particular scheme is very much important for us. The Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana insures farmers against non-preventable natural risks from pre-sowing to post-harvest. See, when we look at the premium, farmers have to pay a maximum amount of 2% of the total premium of insured amount for the Kharif crops, and it is 1.5% for the Rabi crops, and for the commercial crops it is about 4%. It is about 5%. The balance premium is shared by the union after the farmers' contribution. The balance premium will be shared by the union and state government on 50-50 basis and 90-10 basis for the northeastern states. You all know, you all are well aware about it. Now, when we look at the coverage, all farmers growing the notified crops in the notified areas during the season are eligible for such kind of crop insurance. We have the Agriculture Produce Market Committee, which are established by the state laws. These Agriculture Produce Market Committees is going to notify the crops which are produced in the local area, and their first sale should be done there. See, earlier, to earlier to Kharif 2020, the enrollment under the scheme was compulsory. But after a period of time, after the reforms, these kind of compulsory things is waived off. Now, when we look at the risk coverage under the scheme, right, it is going to cover the natural fires, lightning, storms, hailstorm, cyclone, right, hurricane, tornado, each and everything is covered. The risk due to floods, inundation, landslides, each are also covered, right? Everything is covered. The coverage will be available up to a maximum period of 14 days from the harvest of those crops, which is kept in cut and spread condition to dry in the field. Often we see these kind of things are practice done by the farmers, right? Now, when we look at the reasons for opting out by the many states, like recently we have seen about, like just now we have seen about Andhra Pradesh and Bihar, all these states, as the scheme would be voluntary. The scheme is voluntary for the states. The state should be given the option to choose the risk covered, and scheme should be universal, right? There is only certain kind of risks which are covered under the scheme. Now, there is a demand that it should be universal, covering each and every risk. The state should be given the option to use their own database of e-crop, an application used by the state governments to collect the information about the crop, right? Now, many state governments wanted zero premium for the farmers, but for it is currently 2% for the Kharif and 1.5% for the Rabi and 5% for the commercial crops, right? But many of the states want it to be a zero premium. The non-payment of the state share of the premium subsidy, as you know, that is 50-50 basis shared by the union and state governments within the prescribed timeline as defined in the seasonally discipline, right? Disqualification of the state government. It is also a reason. The reason for the West Bengal not implementing this is purely political. We are not going to look at this. Like changes made in the scheme, as I said, it is become optional. Now it is voluntary. In February 2020, Centre decided to restrict its premium subsidy to 30% for unirrigated areas and 25% for the irrigated areas. Earlier, there was no upper limit. You need to be very careful about all these changes which are made recently. Food crops like oil seeds and annual commercial crops are broadly covered under this scheme, right? So this is about this Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. Like remembering the provisions of this Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana can be done by you, right? After you can, right? If you continuously revise these things, after a period of time, you can easily remember them. But the main thing what you need to do is, just now we have discussed about a perspective here. I think we have discussed about a perspective here, right? We had a lot of discussion with respect to these farmers and all these things. These development of these perspectives, understanding these perspectives is very much important to understand the Indian economy. Guys, if possible, just try to rewind the video and try to listen all those perspectives we have discussed here, and just try to have a glance, try to write in your notebook about the glance of Indian economy, right, from the independence till now, right? It is going to help you to write any answer, particularly with respect to Indian economy, particularly with respect to primary sector. Now, let us look at the next topic that we are going to discuss. It is about the current account deficits. See, recently there is a widening of the current account deficits. I look at the India's current account deficit every quarter between April, and this is the graph. Now, the thing is, the current account deficit, the finance ministry has asserted that the current account deficit could, however, deteriorate this year mainly due to rising trade deficits. Now, let me tell you what is the meaning of this current account deficit and how it works. See, when you look at the current account, what is the current account and what is the capital account? Simple, guys. Imagine this is government and we have the private. Now, before we discuss about the current account, capital account, try to understand what is this balance of payments is all about. Now, balance of payments is nothing but the transactions. It's a record of the transactions made by both the government as well as private and households with the outside world in a financial year. All the transactions, all the financial transactions made by the government, private and households with the outside world in a financial year constitute of this balance of payments. Now, this balance of payment transactions are divided into two. Right? You know about the financial transactions. They can be divided into two on their nature of transactions. So, all the one-way transactions are current account transactions. All the two-way transactions are capital account transactions. We have discussed it. Say, for example, imagine ourselves as a India. Like, imagine India have exported some mangoes to the USA. Say, for example, India exported 10 lakh rupees worth of mangoes to USA. So, the 10 lakh rupees is being paid by the USA, and then the transaction ends there. Imagine we have imported a crude oil from the Gulf country and we have paid that money for the Gulf countries. Now the transaction ends there. Now we call them as one-way transactions, and all such kind of one-way financial transactions made by the government, private as well as the individuals comes under this current account transactions. Now take the capital account transactions. They are like two-way transactions. Say for example, myself, I have invested some money in the USA, a company in the USA. Now for my investment, they are going to pay me a periodic, like for my investment, we are going to get some dividends and profits. Let's say for example, I have given a loan to you. Now you are going to pay me the periodic interest rate, and after a period of time, you are going to pay back me the entire debt. So it's a two-way transaction. Once you receive the loan and you're going to pay back, right? Here, once you export the bank notes and you're going to get the money. Where the money involved, we consider a transaction as a transaction where money is involved. Here the money is given in the form of loan and money is recovered in the form of recovery. Now here goods are exported, the money is taken. So a one-way transaction always means a transaction involving a money. We call a transaction when it involves a money. So all such kind of a one-way transactions are discussed under the considered under the capital account, current account balance, and all the two-way transactions are discussed under the capital account balance. Right? I hope you understood. Now when we look at the current account balance, it is a balance of visibles and balance of invisibles. Now let me tell you guys. So when we look at the balance of visibles, as I said, all the one-way transactions are current account transactions. So automatically all the transactions with respect to exports and imports would be one-way transactions. So automatically they are included in the current account balance. So the current account balance, as I said, the current account balance is nothing but the balance of visible plus balance of invisibles. The balance of visibles means visible things, visible goods, like all the imports and exports. The balance of invisible means it is about services. It is about services. Now try to understand. Imagine, see, balance of visibles are also known as the balance of trade. Imagine the government of India, private as well as individuals, all together have exported from the country. The total exports from the country is around about 100 rupees. We have exported 100 rupees worth of goods. We call them as visibles, which we can see, right? And we have imported, say for example, 80 rupees of goods into the country. It is just about goods, guys, not about services. We have exported 100 rupees worth of goods and we have imported 180 rupees worth of goods. So automatically, what is the balance here? So 20 rupees. So the balance of trade, you know about the trade. Trade is all about import and exports. So automatically we have exported 100 rupees of goods and we have imported 80 rupees worth of goods. So the balance of trade here is 20 rupees. So automatically balance of trade. So the value of exports of the goods 100 rupees. But the value of the import of the goods 80. So automatically the balance of trade is 20 rupees. We call this balance of trade is also known as balance of visibles. Now next we have the balance of invisibles. Now when we look at the balance of invisibles, I said it is all about the services. See, it is about the services. There are about 13 services. We export some kind of services to the foreign countries. We also import some kind of foreign services, right? Now, it will also have the components. These components of the balance of invisibles are very much important, guys, right? Now imagine it constitutes the net income from the rest of the world, comprising the compensation to the employees, investments in the form of dividend. Compensation to the employees is nothing but, say for example, if a person is going from our country to the other country and he is earning there and he is sending that money into the country, we call it as remittances. It is considered under the net income. See, investments in the form of dividend, profits, interest, income. So you might have a doubt, like in the previous, just now I told you that, so you said like capital transactions. Now once somebody invests in my company, say for example, an American have invested in my company, I am going to pay him the periodic dividends, periodic profits. So once the profit is received by the American, he need not to pay me back, right? But the investment which he have made, I need to pay it back. So investments comes under the capital transactions, but the dividends which I pay comes under the revenue transactions, current transactions, because they are one way in nature. Once, say for example, imagine I have given a loan to you. Now you have to pay me back the loan after a period of time. We call the loan as a capital transaction, but meanwhile you are going to pay me the interest payments, right? Imagine I have given a loan of 10 lakh rupees to you and every month you need to pay me 10,000, but interest as an interest payment. Once I receive the interest 10,000, I need to pay you back. So interest payments comes under the current transactions, one way transactions, but the loan I have given to you comes under the capital transactions. So automatically, so the dividends, profits and interest comes under the current accounts. I hope you understood. And transfer payments such as gifts and remittances. Just now we have discussed about the remittances. A person going out, working there, earning money and sending it back to the home country usually is considered as remittances. So all these things, say for example, we have exported 100 rupees worth of services and we have imported, say for example, 80 rupees worth of services. So automatically the balance of the service is 20. So the remittances, the profits, interest payments might be 80 rupees and the transfer payments, gifts and each and everything might be, say for example, it might be, say for example, 50 rupees. Totally we have 150 rupees. So the balance of trade here is 20 rupees. The balance of invisibles, the balance of visibles is 20, the balance of invisibles is 150. So automatically the balance of the current account balance would be 170 rupees. Right? I hope you understood how the current account balance is calculated. Now this is about the basics. And when we look at the current affairs in the quarter 4 in the financial year 2021 and 2022, the current account deficit improved to 1.5% of the GDP or 13.4 billion from 2.6% of the GDP in the third quarter of the financial year 2022. Right? Guys, always we express the current account deficit and capital account deficits as a percentage of the GDP. You have to remember it. The difference between the value of goods imported and export, right? This is called balance of trade. We know it, right? We have discussed the balance of trade is nothing but difference between the value of exports and the value of imports, right? It got reduced to the balance of trade got reduced to the balance of trade reduced to 5.4 billion, right, in the fourth quarter of the financial year 2022, right, from 59.75 in the quarter 3. However, based on the robust performance by the computer and business services, net services receipts like the invisibles rose both sequentially on year-on-year basis. Remittances by India abroad also rose. It also increased. When we look at the reasons for the current account deficit, intensifying geopolitical tensions, you know about it, and some we have discussed, you have also these discussions in the newspaper analysis. Intensifying geopolitical tensions and supply chain disruptions leading to crude oil and commodity prices soaring globally have been exerting an upward pressure in the import bill, right? You have to see, for example, we need to pay more and more due to this kind of sanctions. So that's the reason why we need to get more and more money in the foreign currencies. As the rise in the prices of the coal, natural gas, fertilizers, edible oils also puts a pressure on the trade deficit. However, with the global demand picking up, the merchandise exports have been rising. If we export more and more goods, we are going to earn the foreign money. With that foreign money, we can have essential imports, right? This is the basic trend. Now, when we look at the effects of current account deficit on the economy, a large current account deficit will result in a demand for high foreign currency, thus leading the depreciation of the home currency. Now, imagine, say for example, we need to purchase the crude oil. Now, due to geopolitical tensions, the crude oil prices got increased in the dollars. When the crude oil prices is increased and we need more and more dollars in order to purchase it, so automatically we need to exchange our rupee with the dollars. When every country does this, when every country demands, so many of the countries needs the crude oil, so automatically they also need to pay in the dollars. When every country demands the dollars, so automatically its value increases. When the dollar value increases, when compared to it, the domestic currencies depreciates. So automatically widening the current account deficits depreciates the home currency. The national balance of the current account, nations balance current account deficit by attracting the capital inflows and running a surplus the capital accounts, increasing foreign direct investments. We also discussed recently about the withdrawal of the foreign portfolio investments by the foreign investors, particularly from the USA, amid the rising interest rates by the US Federal Reserve. We have discussed about these things in detail. However, worsening current account deficit will put pressure on the inflow under the capital account. Right? Definitely it is going to put a pressure on the capital inflow. So, if an increase in the import bill is because of the imports for the technological upgradation, it would help in a long term, right? So, this is the effects of the current account balance, right? So, in this class, we have clearly discussed about some economic current affairs, particularly with respect to MSP and related nation protest by the farmers. And we also discussed about the perspective of the Indian primary sector right from the independence till now. And we discussed about the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, which is an insurance scheme. And we also discussed about the latest current affairs with respect to current account deficit. Guys, there are various other current affairs which are in transition. So in the next, even this week we have the same continuous topics in transition. So what we are going to do is, in the next economic weekly series, we are going to discuss all these economic current affairs which are appearing new as well as those which are in transition in the news. So I hope you understood and enjoy this class. Thank you and stay tuned to Rathods IAS.